Hey there, welcome to a new Path of Exile guide. Today I'll cover everything you need to know about the Syndicate mechanic. I'll go over the elements of the investigation board, Syndicate divisions, how to shuffle members around the board, safe houses and rewards, veiled items, as well as fighting the big boss Catarina. Now, very likely this is the most confusing and complex piece of content in the game and the one I'm being asked to explain every single time I interact with when streaming. While the information I'll provide in this guide will be really useful, there's still no substitute for actually interacting with the Syndicate and taking some time to understand the consequences of each choice you'll have to make. The good part is, Syndicate can be incredibly profitable exactly because a lot of people avoid it and never bother to learn the mechanics. And basic economics say, the lower the supply, the higher the price and thus your profit. I'm actually really curious how many of you simply skipped this mechanic until now just because you had no idea how it works. Let me know in the comments below or drop by my stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/navandis. In Syndicate, you're helping June, a sort of detective NPC who's investigating a mysterious crime ring with the overarching goal of gathering enough intelligence to find the stronghold of their leader Catarina and kill her. You first meet June in Act 9 of the campaign and afterwards randomly while mapping in the Atlas. June is also one of the 5 masters for which you can obtain Atlas missions, and opening a map with a June mission will guarantee a Syndicate encounter. You can invite June to your hideout and talk with her at any point to check the investigation board she put together, which provides a whole bunch of useful information. First, the Syndicate is split into 4 divisions or branches: transportation, fortification, research and intervention. There's a total of 17 members plus the Mastermind Catarina, however only 14 of those will be present at any given time. And just as in any detective movie ever made, any criminal you haven't yet encountered this league will have a question mark card instead. Each branch has a safe house occupied by a leader, so in this case I've got for example Vegan as the transportation leader and Aisling in charge of research. The card for every known Syndicate member on the board will display the following information: division, rank, items and task. The division is depicted by the symbol in the upper left corner, a wheel for transportation, the palisade wall for fortification, a snake on a strip pole for research and a motorcycle helmet with a bunch of swords for intervention. Members of a certain division are usually grouped in the general area of their safe house, but when you have a lot of them in the central part of the board it can become confusing, so the symbol is the quickest way to figure out who belongs where. The rank is depicted by the number of stars in the upper right corner, from 0 to 3. Members without any stars, like Tora on my board, are considered free agents who aren't currently associated with any branch. This is an important aspect I'll come back to a bit later. Higher ranked members provide much better rewards, but there's also a higher chance of them having extra equipment. Using another board as an example, you can see Gravicious has 3 items which grant him various bonuses or skills in combat. However, that doesn't mean he'll drop those items or anything like that. Those uniques don't even exist in the game, they're just a way of indicating that geared members will be tougher. Finally, when hovering over a member's card, you'll also see what their current task is and implicitly the reward. For example, Gravicious's task is acquiring divination scarab donations, which is just another way of saying the reward you'll get from him is a bunch of divination scarabs. Now, earlier I said that a member's rank influences how good their reward is. Well, in this case, since Gravicious has 3 stars, his reward will be gilded divination scarabs, but if he had just 1 star, you'd get rusted scarabs instead. However, divination scarabs are his reward when he's part of the intervention division, but if you were a member of, let's say, fortification, the reward would be a bunch of random divination cards instead. Since there are 17 members of the Syndicate, each with 4 different rewards depending on what division they're part of, it means there's a total of 68 possible rewards. Now, obviously it would be absurd to try and remember all of them, and equally silly for me to go through all of them in this guide, so I'll just show the most recent chart that was put together by some really nice internet people. Now, do keep in mind this info is subject to change from one league to another, so it's always a good practice to Google something like Syndicate cheat sheet plus the name of whatever league you're currently in. The same goes for the colored ranks on the chart representing the relative value. That can drastically change as PoE has a player-driven economy, and a Blighted Scarab for example might be dirt cheap next league, making Riker an almost worthless Syndicate member. Or the opposite can happen. Up until Ultimatum League, Aisling was pure garbage, but then GEG changed the Veiled mode system and her research reward became God tier. Some examples of rewards that have been constantly valuable or useful are Hillock in Transport, Fortification or Research, adding extra quality to weapons, armors and flasks respectively, Eat That Fled in Research, upgrading Breachstones, Vorici in Research, rerolling between 1 to 6 of an item's socket colors into white, Tora in Research, adding XP to gems, which is really useful when leveling up stuff like Empower or Enlighten, Vegan in Transportation, giving a large number of Legion Splinters, and pretty much every member in Intervention will award a type of scarab, and at least some of them are bound to be worth quite a bit of currency. Obviously, you'll have to do your homework and find out what's valuable in the current league if you want to make a lot of currency using Syndicate. Now, when you start a new league, the Syndicate board you get is random, but that doesn't mean your members are stuck with their current divisions. In fact, that is actually your main goal. Move members around the board, ideally placing each in the division where they provide the best rewards. In this example, I would really like to move Vorici to Research for his White Sockets reward instead of some random Orbs of Fusing and Chromatics, which is what I'd get when he's part of Fortification. So how do you go about shuffling these guys on the Syndicate board? While running maps on the Atlas, you have a chance of triggering a June mission, just like you can randomly spawn the other masters like Nico, Zana, Alva or Einar. That June mission can consist of up to 3 encounters, matching 3 of the Syndicate divisions. However, not all divisions are created equal, and the game will always try to spawn Intervention and Research, and the third one being randomly chosen between Transportation or Fortification. Now you likely noticed I said try to spawn and not guarantee, and I'll get to that a bit later. Transport encounters spawn a caravan that you need to stop before it reaches its destination. It's very slow moving and generally has to complete a pretty long trip, so you have plenty of time to defeat the caravan escort. Fortification consists of a wooden fort that you need to breach and kill the enemies inside. The gates have pretty high HP and damage reduction, but any decent build should make short work of them. Once inside, be mindful of Syndicate members overlapping their abilities. Depending on where it spawns and the map layout, sometimes the fort is incredibly small, meaning you'll be hit by all area of effect skills at once. Members that have items can be especially dangerous in those scenarios, since they gain all sorts of explosions and ground effects which you might not even be able to see when they're all piled up on top of each other. Either try to kite and lure enemies outside, or make sure you kill them quick enough before they get to stack all their shit. Research is an underground laboratory where you need to quickly get to the final room and kill the Syndicate members before the other mobs manage to burn the evidence or whatever they're trying to hide there. Probably mutant member pigs or those ladies shooting projectiles from their boobs in Act 3. Technically there's nothing stopping you from clearing all the mobs, and they can drop decent loot and provide great XP, but do keep in mind most of them are in some dead-end rooms. You'll have to backtrack a lot and you might fail the encounter if you get too greedy and some manage to burn the evidence at the other end of the laboratory. On the other hand, if you just beeline to the final room, you might get swarmed by mobs on the way and run the risk of dying if your burst damage isn't great. Finally, Intervention is basically a bunch of Syndicate members showing up to assassinate you, basically just another lazy afternoon in Rayclast. However, since we are talking about Path of Exile, the Intervention encounters were intentionally designed to spawn when you're already fighting some tough monsters or running other difficult league content, just to ensure there's a higher chance you'll get killed. So, if the Intervention dudes show up exactly when you're struggling the most, well, know that this is specifically what the game designer wanted you to experience. This is the kind of game you're playing. Now, regardless of the type of encounter, you will need to kill all Syndicate members that spawn to complete it. However, keep in mind that if you kill the member that spawned first, the others will try to flee after a short time. While this doesn't fail the encounter, it will significantly impact what you can gain out of it. Once the dust settles, you can interact with the defeated members, and each will always give you 2 choices: interrogate and one of the following: execute, betray or bargain. Interrogating imprisons that member and you gain information on their division over the next 3 encounters. They will also be removed from the spawn table while being interrogated, and after they are released from the prison, they will lose 1 rank. If the leader of a safe house is imprisoned, another member of the same division will be promoted and take its place. The member with the highest number of stars, aka rank, will become the new leader. If there are multiple members with the same rank, the game chooses randomly between them. With the Betray option, the respective member will sabotage another member in some way and become rivals with them. Some examples are removing them completely from the Syndicate, destroying all items from members of their division, or stealing their ranks. This option is only available while there are exactly 2 members left and they are not already rivals. When going with Execute, June kills that member and their rank will increase. If the rank was 0 at the time, they will be assigned to the division of whoever they were assisting currently. In this example, Aisling was one such 0 rank or free agent member. She showed up during a transportation encounter, and when I executed her, she became a member of that division with a 1-star rank. She was also granted a new random item since she had fewer than 3. As for bargaining, you'll always gain a reward of some kind, and this option only shows up when a single member is present. These rewards include gaining intelligence on a division, recruiting a 0 rank member and moving them to their division, switching divisions with another member, or simply dropping some currency, maps, veiled items, etc. Now, if multiple defeated members are present, the options may change depending on the order you take them. In this example, I have Eat That Fled and Riker, and initially both of them have the Betray option. If I were to choose Rikers and remove Eat That Fled from the Syndicate, I would no longer be able to get whatever Eat That Fled offers since he'd be gone. In addition, as mentioned earlier, the non-interrogate choices are only available when a certain number of members are present. In this case, I chose Eat That Fled's Betray option, and Riker was the last member still present in that encounter. Betray was no longer a choice for him since there wasn't anybody left there to betray, and it was instead replaced by Bargain. For these reasons, you should always check the options for each member before you actually choose any and decide how you prioritize them. In time you'll know them by heart, but there's nothing wrong with taking a minute to think about the actual consequences of each decision. Finally, there's an additional, sometimes overlooked option, and that is to release the member without choosing anything. This can be extremely important if either of the two regular choices are bad for your current goal. Now, I've already mentioned several times rivalries and members trusting each other, and you might have even commented already asking why am I ignoring those colored ropes on the board? Is it because I have no idea what they mean and I'm hoping you wouldn't notice them? Well, the good news is I actually know what the ropes do, and I'm about to tell you. They represent relationships between connected members, green meaning friendship or trusted, red representing rivalries, and yellow simply denoting that two members are part of the same division. These relationships are probably the single most important component of the board, and getting as many as possible will be absolutely crucial for how quickly you can generate currency with the Syndicate. The reason for that derives from how the game decides exactly which members will spawn for each division. So let's say you run a map with a dual mission and you get research. Which members will you actually fight against? While it is sometimes hard to notice because the whole thing happens quite fast, each encounter always starts with a single member. Several other Syndicate dudes can join the fight shortly after. If you're curious about this, you can check who was the first member by looking at the green dialogue lines. That first member can never, under any circumstances, be the leader of the safe house. Taking this board as an example, Aisling would never be the first member to spawn in a research encounter. That leaves either Riker or Hillock as the only first picks. Then, the game randomly chooses to spawn between 0 and 3 additional members to fly in through those green portals and join the fight. The pool it can choose the additional members from is made out of other members of the same division, including the leader, plus any members from any division that are either friends or enemies with the first pick. So, in this example, if Hillock was the first pick, then the game would choose 0 to 3 members out of Aisling, Riker, but also Janus, Vegan or Vorici, since they are friends or enemies with Hillock. The immediate conclusion is the more rivalries and friendships you have across the board, the more Syndicate members will spawn on average, and this in turn means you'll get extra chances to manipulate the boards to get the best rewards. This is even more important when considering that safe house leaders always have a much lower natural chance to spawn. Now, I'm sure you'll ask which one is better to have, friendships or rivalries, and the answer is rivalries. Red ropes are your best friend. The reason for this is rather technical but simple. When at least 3 members spawn, you can execute either of them for a +1 rank. If the remaining 2 members are rivals, then you are allowed to execute another one of them, breaking the rule that said execution is only available when exactly 3 members are present, and the more members you get to rank up, the better rewards you'll get. Now, I've talked about these rewards several times, but where and how do you actually get them? Back to the board. I've said earlier that each division has a safe house occupied by a leader. Well, the thing is, you don't really know where these safe houses are, so you interrogate members to gather information on that. Once the information bar reaches 100, you've located the safe house and you can raid it. If you choose not to do so, for example if the members' ranks are too low or the leader is crap, then after 3 Syndicate encounters, the information bar drops to 90. Keep in mind that members of a 100% safe house cannot spawn in Syndicate encounters until you either raid the safe house or the information level decays. This is why triggering new Syndicate missions while a safe house is ready might spawn only 2 encounters such as research plus transportation. After going through a whole bunch of angry mobs, which by the way provide insanely good XP, you enter the safe house and you get to fight the leader and all the members of that division. And finally, you get the rewards they provide for the respective division, with the leader generally providing double their regular reward. In this case, I got a Polish Legion Scarab from Vegan, a Rusted Bestiary Scarab from Jorgen, and a Gilded Divination Scarab from Gravicius. If let's say Vegan also had 3 stars, then he would have given me a Gilded Legion Scarab instead. After you complete a safe house, the leader is sent to jail, all the other members of that division are reset to rank 0, aka free agents, and the game chooses one of them at random to become the new leader. The next time you encounter a Syndicate mission, yet another rank 0 member will move to that branch as a regular member. When leaders are sent to jail, they provide information on the head honcho of the Syndicate, the Mastermind Catarina. Just like safe houses, when the information bar reaches 100, you can finally get to fight this boss. Now, at the time of recording, fighting Catarina will reset your entire Syndicate board. That means all the members are shuffled around and all the relationships are gone. While that might look like a bug, it's actually just really stupid design, and the only time I've killed the boss in the past 2 years was now for this guide. Over time, GG has tried to sweeten the deal and get people to actually kill the boss by either nerfing rewards for regular safe houses or buffing Catarina's drops, but I personally believe resetting the board is still way too punishing. Most recently, they've added a new unique to her loot table, the Cane of Kulamak, which has the potential of being really valuable, that is, if you're lucky enough with the unveiled mods. Another benefit of killing Catarina is that you'll get the rewards of all the members on the board and the reward tier will be upgraded by 1. So if you have a rank 2 member and you kill Catarina, their reward will be upgraded to rank 3. Any members that are rank 3 already will provide a reward tier that's exclusive to Catarina. Going back to our Gravicius in Intervention example, instead of Gilded Scarabs, he'll drop Winged Scarabs. In my opinion, Catarina is only worth fighting very early in a new league, when her uniques such as Devouring Diadem or Cinder Swallow Urn are really expensive. Afterwards, I just stick with the regular safe house rewards. Obviously this can change depending on the state of the economy in each league, and it's up to you to decide which is better or more profitable strategy at the time you're watching this. Now, the boss fight itself isn't particularly hard or complex. After a short warm-up fight and pushing through a passage area, similar to the ones leading up to safe houses, you get to the actual boss arena. It has a square shape with a big sculpture in the middle and 4 large totem poles in each corner, along with the leaders of the 4 divisions initially in some sort of stasis. Catarina's direct attacks and spells are obviously telegraphed and you should be able to easily dodge most of them. She fires a long-winded green projectiles barrage that can be avoided by moving behind her. She summons a giant green skull that explodes after a charge up time, again very easy to dodge by simply moving away. She also casts a giant sight attack that looks far more menacing than it actually is. Unless you're playing a glass cannon build, you can generally face tank that or simply hug the boss and you won't get hit. Another really obvious move is a circle of very bright exploding runes. Well, needless to say, don't stand on top of them and you should be fine. Finally, her last basic spell is thrusting a spear into the ground, which will deal large amounts of area damage if you're near it. By now, I think you figured out you shouldn't stand in fire. Once you get her to 75%, she will heal to full HP and activate the central sculpture. From this point and until the end of the fight, the tower will fire a charged up wave along one corridor every few seconds in a clockwise pattern. The wave hits really hard and it doesn't seem you can dodge or block it, so do your best to keep track of where the next one will hit and move to another lane entirely. Catarina will also unfreeze one of the safe house leaders along with some trash mobs, which you should quickly focus down before switching back to the boss. Then, after getting Catarina to about 80% HP, the sculpture tower thing will cast a massive green explosion over the entire arena. However, this doesn't deal any damage, but instead activates one of the corner totems. An arrow marker will appear beneath your character, pointing to the active totem, and the respective corner area will also start glowing, visibly different from the inactive corners. What you need to do at this point is to move in that area and stand in it for about 3 seconds until the totem explodes. Then immediately get the hell out of there and never set foot in that square ever again. It's now a death zone which deals insanely high damage over time, and being in it will kill you in about 2 or 3 seconds. Thankfully, that area will continue glowing until the end of the fight, so you don't need to actively keep track of which one was it. The boss also gains another new ability, probably her deadliest, but also quite easy to counter. She will spawn about 20 half-buried skeletons, then cast a very bright and hard-hitting explosion that activates them. Once the skulls are active and start glowing, you need to walk over them to destroy them. If you fail this, they will rise from the ground and start chasing you, dealing massive damage as soon as they touch you. They are immune to damage, and while you can survive a few of their explosions, they will likely kill you when combined with all the other damage present in this fight. From here on, it's just rinse and repeat. Nuke Catarina down until she frees the division leader, kill them, then switch back to the boss until the next totem gets activated. Destroy the totem by standing in its area, then once more back to the boss. Avoid getting hit by the middle tower waves or Catarina's obvious moves, and step on the skeleton heads when they start glowing. After all 4 totems are destroyed, Catarina will no longer heal up and you can focus her down until she's dead. She gains just one more ability where she blinks around in the air and finally slams an area really hard, very similar to Shaper's slam. Once she stops and winds up the slam, just dash or leap away from there to avoid getting one shot. However, if your DPS is high enough, you'll likely kill her before she gets to do this new move. I think I've only seen her do this once or twice in all my Catarina fights since the boss was added to the game. After you defeat her, she'll drop one of her uniques, some veiled items and a few other bits and bobs. Then you can exit through any of the 4 doorways. They all lead to the same area where you'll get all the rewards from all the members of the Syndicate you had on your board. It's basically all 4 safe houses in one, with the reward tiers being increased by 1 rank. Now, I've been talking about veiled items and you've definitely found a few if you've interacted with the Syndicate mechanic even a tiny bit, so let's talk about what those are. Veiled modifiers, symbolized by those squiggly lines and wavy patterns, can be found on items, primarily those dropped by Syndicate members. The modifier will do nothing until the item is taken to June to unveil it. Unveiling presents you with 3 random mods and allows you to choose which one the veiled mod becomes. Not choosing one and interacting with June again will not change the 3 mods she offers. Those are already predetermined for that particular item and nothing you'll do will change them. Rarely, one of the 3 mods might fit perfectly with the rest of the affixes on the item and push it from a decent item to a very good one. However, that's not really the primary use or benefit of veiled mods. Unveiling mods adds experience towards unlocking crafting bench recipes for the same type of mod. In fact, about 90% of crafting bench recipes are learned from unveiling veiled items. If you're not familiar with how the crafting bench works or the general structure of items in PoE, then check out my absolute basics crafting guide by clicking on that I think in the upper right corner. Each Syndicate member also has 1 or 2 veiled mods that are specific to them and veiled items dropped by them. A good example is the highly useful minus mana cost to skills prefix, which can be learned from unveiling rings and amulets dropped by Elrion. While veiled items can drop in other places such as Heist, Delve, Blight chests, etc., the quickest and easiest way to get them is from Syndicate. Another way of obtaining veiled items is to use the recently introduced veiled Chaos Orbs, which work exactly the same way Chaos Orbs do, rerolling a rare item's affixes, but one of the resulting mods will be a guaranteed veiled one. Finally, to wrap up this lengthy guide, I'll go through a couple of methods you can use to increase the number of June Atlas missions you can get and how to run them efficiently. First, each day, 5 new master missions, 1 for each master, will be added to your Atlas mission pool after the reset at midnight GMT based on the tier white, yellow, red of your last completed map. On top of that, taking these 2 small passive nodes in Valdo's Rest will further increase the chance of receiving a June mission when you complete a map in that region. The same goes for the Close Allies Atlas passive in the Uncharted Realms. And speaking of Atlas passives, both Valdo's Rest and Hayork Hamlet have amazing Syndicate specific passives such as Test of Loyalty, which causes any rank increase actions like Execute to provide an extra rank, or Focused Investigation providing an extra 10% chance of receiving a June mission after completing a map in that area. Basically, Hayork Hamlet is great for getting more June missions, while Valdo's Rest is amazing when running those missions. Titanium Watchstones can also roll a couple of really useful Syndicate mods, and Prime and Awakened Sextants have a chance to roll an Area Contains June mod. Finally, Navali can provide a Master Seeks Help June prophecy, or you can buy it from other players. The Divination card set, Somebody's Wisdom, can be exchanged for the same prophecy as well, and there's a Harvest recipe which can be used to sacrifice a map to obtain random master missions of the same tier as the sacrificed map. And that's it. I promise this is pretty much all you need to know about the Syndicate mechanic.
Learn anything new, Exile?
If you did, then you'll probably be happy to hear there are more videos coming up in the near future with more exciting builds to try. Make sure not to miss them by subscribing to the channel so you get notified when that happens. And while you're at it, why not like this video as well or drop a comment down below to let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.